In my past life, the emperor feared Prince Rong, so he dismantled his childhood engagement and married me instead. Later, Prince Rong rebelled. As his army marched into the city, I was drowned by his childhood sweetheart. Reborn. I returned to the day he came to propose. This was his 12th visit to my home to ask for my hand. My father watched me trembling. His brows knotted. On Yen. This is the 12th time. This is the Prince of Rong. You know. I nodded shakily. Father. Agreeing to this means losing my life. Father scratched his head. On Yen. You've been saying for months this match will cost you your life. What exactly are you afraid of? What am I afraid of? Father. You don't know. But I certainly do. I've been reborn. In my previous life, the emperor feared the Prince of Rome so much he dismantled his military commander's betrothal to his childhood sweetheart and instead married the daughter of a censor, you. Father. My own daughter. Later, the Prince of Rome rebelled. When his army stormed the city, I was drowned by his childhood sweetheart. Now that I've been reborn, he comes proposing marriage. If it were you, would you marry him? I glared at my father. Father, if you truly fancy Prince Rong, you marry him. I certainly won't. My father slapped me. What nonsense. If you truly refuse, you must at least give a reason. Just say I've renounced worldly desires and wish to become a nun. My father slapped me again. What nonsense. If you became a nun, your mother would lock me up first. My eyes lit up. Father. Just say I'm already in love. He can't beat apart a pair of lovebirds. My father shook his head. No good. He wasn't afraid when I said you two had incompatible horoscopes and would bring misfortune to your husband. If you say you've found someone, he might kill your beloved. You'd be harming others. I jumped to my feet. This is infuriating. What's wrong with this man? He's nothing like he was in my past life. I paced the room in frustration, circling 100 times before shaking my father's shoulder. Father. What if I just slip away tonight? Tell him I couldn't bear the pressure and fled. My father stroked his beard, pondering for a long while before slapping the table. That's feasible. Pack your things. You'll leave tonight. Haven't you always wanted to visit your maternal family in Jiangnan? Depart tonight. By the hour of Su. I was dozing in the carriage, my feet dangling. Leaving just before curfew, no one would notice. Right? After about 2 hours, we passed a post station. I called out to Zwar. Zwar. We'll stay here tonight. We'll continue our journey tomorrow morning. Zwar responded with a nod, reining the carriage to a halt at the inn's entrance. As I stepped inside, my peripheral vision caught sight of a man clad in moon-white brocade seated at a table. I rubbed my eyes. Was I seeing things? How was the Prince of Rome here? My palms grew clammy. Steeling myself, I whispered to the drowsy innkeeper, 5 rooms. Please. The innkeeper's eyes were heavy. He gestured toward the Prince of Rome. My apologies. Sir. All the guest rooms tonight have been reserved by His Highness. I froze for a moment, muttered a thank you, and headed toward the door. I shot the Prince of Rome a huge, rolling eye. Just a handful of people booking out an entire inn? Got money to burn. Huh? Just as I reached the doorway, the Prince of Rome cleared his throat. I'd be happy to give the 5 best rooms to the young lady. I curved my lips into a polite smile. Thank you for your kindness, sir. But we're in a hurry and must travel through the night. Outside, the moon was hidden and the wind howled. The Prince of Rome swirled his teacup. There are always bandits who prey on wealthy young ladies like you. Xiaolu clutched my arm tightly. I patted her hand. Prince Rome's words are meant to scare young girls like this. These are peaceful times. No need for your concern. I smiled faintly. Besides, we're strangers. One must always guard against others. Prince Rong sipped his tea and spoke slowly. And Yen, you truly don't recognize me? I sucked in a sharp breath as an unbelievable thought flashed through my mind. Could this bloke be reborn too? My mind reeled for a moment. I turned to stare at the Prince of Rong. You know me? Until I could sort this out, I'd play dumb for as long as possible. The Prince of Rong snorted coldly. And Yen, do you not recognize me? Or dare not acknowledge me? I gathered my composure and replied in a chilling tone. I don't recognize you. Fine. If you say you don't, then you don't. The Prince of Rome chuckled softly. Then allow me to introduce myself. I am the Prince of Rome who sought your family's hand in marriage 12 times. He stepped closer, whispering into my right ear, or rather, the ear of the husband you were intimately entwined with in your past life. Li Qing. My body went numb. This must be what my father meant by struck dumb. I felt rooted to the spot, my right side tingling with a numbing sensation that spread to my brain, turning it into a churning mass of mush. I swallowed hard, staring blankly at Li Qing. I don't know you. Li Qing pinched my earlobe. It's fine. We'll have plenty of time to get acquainted. I shoved him away forcefully, rubbing my earlobe hard. You're being a pervert, aren't you? I called out to Zui Air, grabbed Xiaolu's hand, and resolved to travel through the night to get as far away from this lunatic as possible. Holding my head, I slumped over the carriage, half hearing Xiaolu and Zhuo whispering nearby. Soon, Xiaolu murmured in my ear, Miss, Prince Rong and his men have been following our carriage. I sighed heavily. Let him follow if he wants. Consider him a free bodyguard. We'll shake him off once we reach my maternal home. Xiaolu nodded. After watching me hesitate for a long while, she asked, Did you know Prince Rong before, Miss? Slumped in the carriage, I waved my hand dismissively. I don't know him. And I don't want to know him. Xiaolu, listen to me, stop obsessing over Prince Rong proposing marriage. That prince has a childhood sweetheart. Qin Yi, the youngest daughter of the Qin family, the one who cracks that whip. If your young mistress ever gets tangled up with Prince Rong, that whip will definitely come down on me. And when it does, I'll use you as a shield. Xiaolu shuddered twice. You're right, Miss. Life comes first. If we can't take them on, we can always avoid them. I curved my lips. This little maid was utterly loyal, a couple of scares would keep her in line for years. After a hurried journey, we finally reached my maternal grandparents' home. Just as I was about to enter, someone knocked on the carriage window. Li Qing stood outside. On Yen, though I was on official business, I still escorted you all the way. Not even a word of thanks? After a moment's thought, I rolled down the window and bowed slightly. Thank you, Your Highness, for escorting me. Ignoring his expression, I leaped from the carriage and dashed straight into the courtyard. Get away from this plague of a man. At my maternal grandfather's home, my days were spent either playing chess with him or accompanying him fishing. His gaze grew distant as he asked if he could go out for a stroll. I'm an old man with little time left, he said. Don't torment me. I looked at him and said, with your constitution, even if I dragged my mother along to bother you, it wouldn't be much trouble. Could I tell my grandfather the real reason I avoided going out? The fear that if I ran into someone I knew, Prince Rong would come knocking for the 13th time to propose marriage? Then my grandfather's old bones truly wouldn't be able to handle the turmoil. After over 10 days of confinement, I reckon Li Qing must have settled his affairs and returned to the capital. Only then did I dare drag Xiaolu out for a proper stroll through the streets. Before long, we spotted Li Qing, dressed in opulent finery unlike his usual self, shining like a beacon on the long avenue. I sighed, realizing he must have stationed someone outside my maternal grandfather's house. I didn't buy that coincidence for a second. Seeing Li Qing's striking appearance, my heart gave 2 heavy thumps before I violently suppressed the feeling. Pinching my thigh. TSK. How could I forget? Ignoring Li Qing's intense stare, I pulled Xiaolu toward the sugar figurine stall. With this crowd, Li Qing probably wouldn't dare do anything to me. Before we reached the stall, someone grabbed my wrist. I turned to see Li Qing. I struggled twice but couldn't break free. I glared at him. Let go. If you don't. I'm screaming. Li Qing's eyes crinkled with amusement. Scream about what? I gathered my breath deep in my chest and bellowed at the top of my lungs, help. Someone's harassing an innocent young lady. My voice carried, drawing stares from the surrounding crowd. Li Qing's face darkened as he declared loudly. This is my fiancé. We just had a fight. And she's sulking at me. Who's your fiancé? Li Qing pulled me halfway into his embrace. All right. All right. Anian. I'm sorry. You can have whichever sugar figurine you want. Okay? You brain-dead lunatic. Perhaps because Li Qing looked so upright and patiently coaxed me. Everyone chimed in, such a small thing, why fight over it? Exactly. You two are such a perfect match, it's not worth getting upset over a candy figurine. Come on. Everyone. Make some room. Let the young lady pick first. I glanced at the crowd chiming in. Then at Li Qing. His eyes twinkling with amusement. A good woman doesn't quarrel with a man. I snatched a rabbit candy figurine from the vendor and turned to leave. After just a few steps, Li Qing pulled me back. He broke off a small piece of the candy and popped it into my mouth. Then looked down at me and asked, Sweet? I chewed the candy in my mouth, refusing to answer. Li Qing chuckled softly. Brother Qing. The sound of horse hooves stopped beside my ear. I turned to see a young girl on horseback. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and my body trembled slightly. Li Qing seemed to sense my unease, tightening his grip on my wrist as he turned to ask the girl. Qin Yu, what are you doing here? Qin Yu glanced at Li Qing's hand holding mine. I yanked my hand back violently. Had I been a moment slower, she might have chopped it off. I truly wished to avoid further entanglement with these two. After a hasty bow, I pulled Xiaolu away. Behind us, Li Qing seemed held back by Qin Yu and did not follow. Sneaking home through the back door, Xiaolu touched my forehead and murmured, Why are you so cold? She immediately sent someone out to boil water. After soaking in a hot bath for ages and being forced to drink a large bowl of calming soup by Xiaolu, I finally collapsed onto the bed. But the moment I opened my eyes, there was Qin Yu again. Qin Yu and his men yanked me from the bed, his hands tearing open my robe, running his fingers over my neck. He laughed and asked, And Nian, so it was with this face and this body that you seduced Brother Akin, wasn't it? Goosebumps crawled all over my skin. I shook my head frantically. I didn't. I truly didn't. Qin Yi's cold, sharp voice exploded beside my ear. Then do you know why Brother Ayun married you? Because Brother Ayun couldn't bear to see me in danger. So he used you as a shield. Now that Brother Ayun has achieved his grand purpose, he sent me to kill you. Qin Yi dragged me toward the Yuqing pool. And Nian, you must understand, Akin's empress can only be me. He forced my head underwater, the icy pool filling my throat. Suffocating. Darkness swallowed my vision. I gasped sharply, jolting awake. It was a dream. Before I could exhale, I suddenly noticed someone sitting beside the bed. Before I could cry out, the figure covered my mouth. Li Qing's familiar voice whispered in my ear. Don't scream. It's me. I steadied myself, pushed Li Qing's hand away, and wrapped myself in the quilt. Your Highness, visiting my room in the dead of night, is this to ruin my reputation? Li Qing sighed almost imperceptibly. Nian nian. I climbed over the wall. No one noticed. You seemed off tonight, and I couldn't rest easy. I just came to see you. To talk properly. After Li Qing spoke, the room fell silent. So many questions swirled in my mind, yet not a single one could escape my lips. I pulled the quilt tighter around me, a wave of hurt washing over me. Why do you always have to come and mess with me? Li Qing wiped at the corner of my eye. But the more he wiped, the more tears came, as if finding an outlet for all the pent-up bitterness and grievances that now spilled from my eyes. Li Qing pulled me, quilt and all, into his embrace. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I wept bitterly. Li Qing always used that phrase to comfort me. Of course it was his fault, he'd say it over and over. After crying for a while, I reached out from under the quilt, wiped the tears from my face, and said hoarsely, I don't care what you're scheming. All I want now is to live well and keep my family safe. Li Qing rested his chin on my head. All right. We'll all be safe. I pulled away from his embrace. Don't come looking for me anymore. Li Qing stared at me for a long moment, assuming I was still angry. Anian. Then wait for me. Wait until my affairs are settled. All right? Li Qing watched my expression cautiously. Anian. Remember those early days after our marriage? The tenderness. The deep affection? Yes. I began. We did share moments of gentle care and deep affection. But the outcome was too painful. I don't have the courage to go through that again. Just as I was about to speak, Xiaolu seemed to hear the sound of me rising. Miss. You're awake. Li Qing's body trembled. He whispered in my ear. Nian nian. I have no feelings for Qinyu. I only love you. Don't overthink this. Xiaolu tapped lightly on the door twice. Miss? Li Qing kissed my eyelid, mouthing the words wait for me before climbing out the window. I murmured back. Nothing. Just a nightmare. No need to come in. The long night stretched on. I watched Li Qing's departing figure, staring wide-eyed until dawn broke before finally drifting off. Before I could catch up on sleep, Xiaolu's loud voice roused me. Miss. Miss. The Prince of Rong has sent you a gift. I opened my eyes groggily. A gift? Xiaolu held a basket cradling a tiny kitten, gazing at the pure white fur. I felt a wave of dizziness. In my past life, right after our wedding, Li Qing had given me just such a milky white kitten. He said when he was busy, it could keep me company. I held the little creature, unable to put it down, marveling at its snowy white fur and naming it Xuetuan. Li Qing murmured Xuetuan and leaned close to whisper in my ear that Snowball was as delicate as I was. Blushing, I nestled into Li Qing's embrace while Snowball curled up in my lap, licking my palm repeatedly. The warm, wet sensation on my palm snapped me back to reality. I gazed at the kitten nestled in my palm, stroked its fluffy head, and said, From now on, you'll be called Nomi. Xiaolu handed me a handkerchief. Miss. Snowball is such a lovely name. Look how pure white it is. Not a single stray hair. My gaze softened as I looked at Nwomi. Nwomi it is. Snowball must remain Snowball. What's past is past. The days that followed were spent chatting about cats, teasing dogs, and annoying my maternal grandfather. Before I could fully provoke him, rumors began spreading through the streets. Prince Rong had raised an army in the west. They said the current emperor, swayed by treacherous counsel, ruled with incompetence and tyranny. Under the banner of clearing the court of villains, Prince Rong was rapidly advancing toward the capital, winning over every city he passed through. Grandfather nearly pulled out his beard, shaking his head. Such speed? He muttered. He must have been preparing for this for a long time. This Prince Rong is no ordinary man. Holding Nomi close, I nodded frantically. Preparing for a long time? He's been preparing for 2 lifetimes. He's extraordinary. Truly extraordinary. My grandfather looked at me thoughtfully. What about your marriage? I froze. What marriage? I hear Prince Rong has been at your doorstep proposing, nearly kicking the threshold to pieces. And this cat of yours, don't think I'm blind. I smiled brightly at him. Grandfather, you're as sharp as ever. Nothing escapes your notice. Grandfather gave my forehead a firm tap. Don't interrupt. I can see you're hiding something. Your stubborn nature always leads you down dead-end paths. But Nian Nian, when you rely solely on your mind, you often neglect what your heart feels. But shouldn't we always use our minds? What if following my heart leads me down the same path again? I sprang to my feet, my heart racing. I finally realized that deep down, I did care about Li Qing. I set the glutinous rice on the ground. No, this wasn't right. Things weren't supposed to be like this. I had already built high walls around myself. No one could enter. And I couldn't escape either. Perhaps from overthinking during the day. I felt drowsy immediately after eating. Xiaolu helped me onto the bed and tucked me in. I was roused by voices. Opening my eyes, I found myself in a carriage. I grunted twice. A woman in black entered, removing the hemp cloth stuffed in my mouth. Who are you? I croaked. Where are you taking me? The woman ignored me, forcing a bowl of medicine down my throat before stuffing my mouth shut again. Soon, the drowsiness returned. This cycle repeated, fainting, waking, fainting, waking, a hazy, dazed state. When I finally came to, I found myself bound and gagged in a room. I scanned my surroundings, detecting a faint sense of familiarity. Before I could observe further, the sound of a door opening reached my ears. I turned to look. A figure clad in bright yellow stood there, and a vague realization dawned on me. No wonder Li Qin wore out your doorstep begging to marry you. A hand brushed my cheek. I find myself quite fond of you too. I took a shallow breath. What does your majesty intend to do with me? Prince Rong is already at the gates of Xinjiang. The emperor stared at me coldly. Tell me, if he had to choose between this empire and you, what do you think my younger brother would pick? I didn't answer the emperor's question. You made one mistake. The emperor frowned. What did I do wrong? I'm not Li Qin's true love. I'm merely his shield. The one he truly loves is Qin Yu of the Qin family, his childhood sweetheart. The emperor's voice turned icy. Impossible. Qin Yu told me personally that capturing you would allow him to negotiate terms with Li Qin. Your Majesty, where do you think Li Qin and I found such deep affection? I laughed. Qin Yu and Li Qin merely used me as a shield. Moreover, Li Qin and the Qin family are deeply colluding. This uprising was spearheaded by the Qin family. And my father is just a cowed censor afraid of his wife. Capturing her is clearly the more advantageous move. No matter how you look at it. The emperor pondered for a moment, then flicked his sleeve and snapped. Don't try to fool me. If your majesty doubts me, investigate. Li Qin and the youngest daughter of the Qin family are cousins. They've known each other since childhood. Just recently, Qin Yu even went to Jiangnan for Li Qin's sake. Your majesty need only inquire to learn the truth. Seeing my earnest words, the emperor seemed to believe me a little. He ordered guards to watch me closely, then turned and walked out. For several days, I was confined to this room. The emperor was thoughtful, sending only mute maids to care for me. As dawn broke, the mute maid dressed me and escorted me to the hall of diligent government. Outside, chaos reigned as people scrambled to flee. The emperor's face was etched with anxiety. I calculated with my fingers, Li Qin must be approaching. The emperor glanced at me with a cold smile. You deceived me. The moment Li Qin reached the capital, He took your father under his protection. Clearly, his feelings for you are genuine. But he doesn't know that I had you bound and brought here long ago. The emperor pressed a blade to my throat, pushing me onto the palace steps as we faced the gates. And Nian, look, they're coming. I watched Li Qin, clad in full military gear, gallop toward the palace. His expression flickered with panic upon seeing me, then swiftly hardened. The emperor watched Li Qin press the blade deeper. Li Qin, suppose my hand trembled just a fraction more. Such a beauty would meet her end. Li Qin snorted coldly. The emperor truly has skill, murdering father and mother, seizing the throne. Now you spare not even a woman. The emperor's form trembled slightly. His voice quivered as he cried out, impossible. How do you know? How do you know? If one does not know, it is because only the perpetrator knows. The emperor laughed hoarsely. Ha 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 ha. Li Qin, I am the legitimate eldest son. Why would father emperor name you crown prince? Why would mother empress support you? I am her own flesh and blood. Anyone who stands in my way must die. Li Qin, not even you can stand in my way. The emperor stifled his laughter. Come, let me see. How do you intend to choose? Do you want this empire? Or do you want her? Li Qin's eyes reddened. Killing her won't help you. As long as I live, you'll never truly secure this throne. What if I trade my life for hers? Li Qin croaked at the emperor. Li Qin, do you take me for a fool? Why trade? If you wish her to live, then kill yourself here. Today, only one of you can survive. I gazed at Li Qin, his face covered in stubble, and slowly curved my lips. I offered my neck forward, feeling warmth against my skin. Li Qin, if you dare to die, I dare to die before your eyes. Have you forgotten your mother? That gentle, water-like consort you? Before she died, she told you to live well. I refuse to live on alone, burdened by your death. Nor will I let you sacrifice your life for me. My voice trembled with suppressed tears. Li Qin, I only need one answer. Do you truly love me? Anian, from the very beginning, I have loved only you. From the first moment I saw you on that long street, I was lost. I laughed. That encounter on the long street was from a past life. Just as I moved forward to slash at the emperor's blade, a sudden, stabbing pain erupted on my left cheek. Warm blood splattered across my face. I turned to see an arrow piercing the emperor's skull. Before I could react, Li Qin pulled me forcefully into his embrace. My hands flailed wildly against his chest. Why did you come so late? Are you crazy? How could you trade your life for mine? Li Qin caught my hands. Blame me. Blame me. I never imagined the emperor would go to Jiangnan to kidnap you. It is your fault. If your cousin hadn't told the emperor I was the most important person to you, he wouldn't have captured me. I wailed, my grief overwhelming. Li Qin gently patted my back. She wasn't wrong. You truly are the most important person to me. I continued to wail. I hate those so-called cousins. There's no such thing as a cousin, only you. Anian. It's always been only you. In my past life, when I returned to the mansion, I saw only your cold corpse. I sought out a Taoist priest and traded my life for another chance with you. I swore that even if it took years, even if it spanned past and present lives, I would stay by your side. I listened, stunned for a long while before stammering. Why? Anian. A promise made is a promise kept. No mountain could stand in our way. I promised to stay by your side forever. And I meant it. My wails grew louder. How could you be so foolish? What in the world is worth trading your life for? You are worth it. Nian Nian. You always have been. Curled up in the rocking chair beneath the eaves, I closed my eyes to the sound of rain. Ever since Li Qing escorted me home after the palace coup, I'd holed up in the courtyard, refusing to move. Li Qing came by every other day. And every other day. I shook my head. Avoiding things might be shameful. But it works. Father shuffled over and kicked my rocking chair. And Nian, the Prince of Rome has come to propose marriage again in the front hall. Father nudged me. No. He's the regent now. Li Qing refused to ascend the throne. So he installed the late emperor's 7-year-old youngest son as emperor and took the title of regent himself. And Nian, this is the 26th time he's proposed. I opened my eyes to look at father. Don't worry, father. Even if he's emperor, he can't force a marriage, right? Father pressed his hand to his forehead. Daughter, don't you think the regent might get so angry he'd wipe out our entire family? I closed my eyes and drifted back to sleep. Don't worry, father. If anyone gets wiped out, it'll be you first. Father, enraged, kicked my rocking chair again. Fine. And Nian, if you show no mercy, don't blame me for showing none either. I kept my eyes shut, too lazy to bother with this clown of a father. After a good sleep, I opened my eyes to find Li Qing had somehow brought a rocking chair and was sitting beside me, watching me. How did you get in? Li Qing cradled Nuomi while stroking her. Your father said I may come and go freely in your home henceforth. So we may cultivate our bond. I rose, hands on hips. My dear father. Waiting here for me. Rising too abruptly. A wave of dizziness washed over me. And I slumped back into the rocking chair. Exhausted. Li Qing handed me a cup of tea. And Nian, now that all is settled, what are you still afraid of? I took the tea and shook my head. I don't know. Li Qing settled into the rocking chair beside me, listening to the rain with me. After a long while, he spoke. It doesn't matter. I'm strong and healthy. I have all the time in the world to keep you company. True to his word. From that day on, Li Qing came to my courtyard every day after court, even bringing his memorials with him. Out of sheer boredom, I watched Li Qing review the memorials. After a moment's thought, I said, "Take me out to play." Li Qing raised an eyebrow at me, utterly astonished. Why the sudden interest today? I nodded. The cherry pancakes you brought from Jiangnan Tower yesterday were delicious. I want more. Li Qing set down his brush. Let's go. I paused. Now? Li Qing hummed. Or shall we wait until after your bath and incense ritual? Li Qing led me effortlessly into a private room at Jiangnan Tower. As the waiter listed dishes, I ordered several I fancied. Before the order was complete, a familiar voice pushed open the door. Brother Li Qing. I rolled my eyes dramatically at Li Qing before resuming the ordering. Li Qing eyed Qinyu standing by the table and said coldly, "Speak properly. If you still haven't learned to speak properly, you'll be confined for another 6 months. You won't be allowed out until you've mastered proper speech." Qinyu reluctantly called out, "Your Highness." Li Qing hummed in acknowledgement, pouring me a cup of tea without expression. "If you're done, you may leave." Qinyu fixed his gaze on me, sneering. "So it was you, you fox spirit, who seduced the prince until he abandoned the throne." "Qinyu!" Li Qing snapped. I tilted my head to look at Qinyi. Whether he becomes emperor is his own business. Just like sitting here dining with me, it's entirely his choice. You want him to marry you? Ask Li Qing if he's willing. I pushed my teacup toward Li Qing, who refilled it for me. Some daydreams need waking. I finished the tea in my cup and smiled at Qinyi. "Qinyi, if you keep talking so recklessly, you can go back to your Qin residence." Li Qing said in a deep voice, "Your betrothal to the Liu family in the northwest is approaching. Isn't it? Go home and prepare for the wedding. Chen Yi was dragged out of the private room by Li Qing's men, cursing all the way. Li Qing looked at me. Anian. Chen Yu is the eldest daughter of the Chen family. My mother's niece. I have no choice. I cut him off. Marrying far away to the northwest is worse than death to her. Besides, what happened in the past is over. Malicious thoughts churned in my heart. Let's see if Chen Yi even survives the journey to the northwest. Li Qing stared at me for a long moment. Then suddenly smiled. His handsome eyes clear and bright. His entire face radiating joy. On the way home from Dangying Tower, I spotted my father pacing at the alley entrance from the crossroads. I skipped over to him and asked brightly, "Father, were you waiting for me?" Seeing me, he took my hand and began to speak softly. "Anian, your father has wronged you." Me? What was this about? Father closed his eyes, as if steeled in resolve. "Your mother has returned. I've told her everything about you and the regent prince." My mind went blank. That familiar numbness returned. I turned, grabbed Li Qing's hand, and started toward the door, planning to hide out for a few days. The idea was good, but reality was harsh. Just as we were about to leave, my mother's piercing voice boomed. "And Xiaonian, get over here this instant." I looked at Li Qing, his eyes screaming, "Save me! Save me!" Li Qing chuckled, flicked my forehead, and tugged me back inside. "Hello, Auntie. I'm Li Qing." Li Qing bowed respectfully to my mother. Mother scrutinized Li Qing from head to toe. "Fine. You're worth 6 round trips with twists and turns for my Yen." "Me? Mother." Mother smacked my forehead hard. "This business of yours has caused quite a stir. I hear you've proposed to Yen 26 times already?" Li Qing shook his head. 27 times now." I looked at Mother, smiling innocently. "I asked again the day before yesterday, but I didn't agree." Mother smacked my forehead again. "Pick a good date and get this marriage settled. Rest assured, even if they had to tie me up, I'd make sure Yen marries you. Auntie, the day after tomorrow is auspicious." My mother calculated the date. "All right. The 16th of June. That's a good day." "Huh?" I looked at my father in confusion. He smiled warmly at Mother. Had I been sold off by my parents? Li Qing had prepared the entire wedding ceremony long ago. Even my bridal gown was ready. All I needed to do was play the role of a lucky charm awaiting the wedding. But being a good luck charm is exhausting too. You know? I propped my head up as Li Qing carefully applied gold lacquer with a brush, layer by layer. I watched him holding the brush, dressed in his wedding robes, his eyes sparkling with awe, a silly grin on his face. The master of ceremonies sang with a smile, sharing the same food, uniting in the wine cup, becoming one in body and status. My cheeks flushed hot as I patted Li Qing, urging him to snap out of it. He smiled, raised his cup, and completed the ritual. After drinking, Li Qing had to go to the front courtyard. The womenfolk, wary of the regent prince's status, dared not tease me, instead offering auspicious words. I scanned the room but didn't see Qinyu. After acknowledging everyone, the crowd gradually dispersed. I ordered Xiaolu to prepare a sobering broth for Li Qing, but when he entered the room, he stood perfectly steady. Curious. I sniffed the broth. "You didn't drink?" Li Qing pinched my cheek, then reached up and pulled the hairpin from my hair. "I must remember today well. I can't afford to let drinking get in the way." My dark hair instantly cascaded down like a waterfall. Li Qing carried me to the bed, kissing his way down from my forehead, his hands stirring up flames everywhere. "Anian, are you ready?" My cheeks burned fiercely. I gently pushed Li Qing's shoulder. "Li Qing, why are you so talkative?" Li Qing smiled with tender affection. I couldn't help but bite his Adam's apple in frustration. He gripped my waist with gentle pressure, his heat sending shivers through my body. I nestled into his embrace. The entire room was filled with passionate intimacy. Side story. I knew what I wanted from a young age. So the first time I saw Jiangnan under the streetlights, I knew I would marry her. But marrying her rashly would surely draw my imperial brother's attention to the Yin family, who had always feared me. I sent word to my brother that I intended to marry the youngest daughter of the Qin family. As expected, my brother took notice. I instructed my palace spies to casually mention the Yin family. Sure enough, my brother deemed the Yin family, a clan of civil officials, far less threatening than the Chens. Thus, I married Jiangnan as I had wished. Never before had I met a woman who lived with such vibrant energy. Wherever she was, she savored life with earnest devotion. I joined Jiangnan in her whimsical pursuits. I helped her relocate the rockery to the rear courtyard so we could hear the sound of flowing water. I assisted her in replacing every black curtain in the house with blue ones. And Jiangnan always complained that the former Prince Rome's mansion felt like a military barracks. Watching the Prince Rome's mansion transform beyond recognition in mere days, and seeing Jiangnan bustling about tirelessly, I suddenly felt the weight of my vengeance grow twofold lighter. I skipped court sessions every other day to accompany Jiangnan on outings. My imperial brother even withdrew half the spies he'd sent to watch me. My uncle reminded me, Jiangnan could serve as a decoy to deceive the emperor. But I mustn't forget the grand scheme we were plotting. In that instant, fear gripped me. If Jiangnan discovered my true ambitions, would she still stand by me as she always had? Yet my uncle's increasingly stooped back told me I could wait no longer. I told Jiangnan I must travel for a time, assuring her the mansion's guards would protect her. And Jiangnan smiled as she packed my belongings, urging me to be cautious. I kissed her, telling her not to worry and to wait for my return. But Jiangnan never saw me return. She lay cold and still, unresponsive to my desperate calls. I drew my sword and pressed it against Qinyu's throat. My uncle knelt beside us, pleading desperately. Qinyu was the child my aunt had risked her life to bear, the very aunt who had raised me from infancy. But what of Jiangnan? What wrong had Jiangnan done? Seeing my resolve waver, my uncle snatched the sword from me. Kneeling beside me, he pleaded, "Akin, Yaya has done wrong. I'll send her to the northwest, never to return to the capital. I beg you, spare her life." Qinyu's wails gave me a headache. My uncle forced her away and hurried off. I sat before the rockery all night. Attendants took turns urging me to resume my duties, saying the empire needed my leadership. Gazing at the dawn's first light, I summoned Minister Ji. I drafted an edict, commanding the cabinet to assist the third prince in ascending the throne, with Minister Ji serving as imperial preceptor. Minister Ji stared at me in astonishment. I offered no explanation. Clutching Jiangnan's lifeless body, I rose and made my way to the White Dragon Temple. Master Qingfeng looked at me and said only, "The dead cannot be brought back to life." I nodded. I know. I only wish to renew this bond with her in the next life. The master sighed and asked aloud, "Even if it were all a great dream?" I murmured, "Even if it were all a great dream." After pondering for a moment, the Taoist asked, "Do you know what price you must pay?" I knew. I was willing to bear any price, even my life. In that great dream, I returned to the time when Jiangnan was still alive. I refused to wait any longer and went directly to the Yin family to propose marriage. And Jiangnan rejected me. By the sixth rejection, I knew she had returned too. I felt guilty toward her. Yet I couldn't let her go. I didn't care how many times I proposed, I only wanted to marry her. And Jiangnan slipped away secretly. I chuckled. This little girl truly didn't understand the dangers of the world. I escorted her all the way to Jiangnan, stationing men outside her home to wait for her to leave. And Jiangnan seemed determined to sever ties with me. Despite her love for bustling crowds, she holed up at home for over 10 days. Perhaps growing restless, she finally ventured out with her maid. I'd planned to take her sightseeing, but then Chinyu sent word, and Nian turned pale at the sight of Chinyi. My heart ached for her, and I slipped into her room under cover of night. Watching her wake up crying, my heart felt like it was being squeezed in someone's fist. I gently wrapped my arms around Nian and whispered comforting words. She asked me why I couldn't let her go. I dared not tell her why. My obsession had lasted too long. Nian, I truly cannot let you go. After leaving Nian, I realized I couldn't wait any longer. I desperately wanted to end everything and be with Nian properly. But as I fought my way into the palace and saw Nian being held hostage on the long staircase, I panicked. If Nian were gone, what meaning would any of this hold? And Nian seemed to sense my thoughts, her voice breaking as she told me she didn't want me to sacrifice everything for her, that she couldn't bear to live on while I suffered. I glanced up at the archer perched on the roof, gave a wave of my hand, and an arrow pierced my elder brother's head. Holding Nian close, tears of reunion fell onto her hair. Her hands flailed wildly against my chest, and only then did I truly feel that the person in my arms was indeed Nian. I did not ascend to the throne. I refused to let the imperial harem imprison Nian's life, as it had done to my mother. Once all was settled, I went to Nian's family to propose marriage. She still refused. I knew what she feared, the same fate as in our past life. I could wait. I sent Chinyi to the northwest. If she survived the journey, it would be her good fortune. I also brought in Nian's mother, who had been traveling abroad, back to the capital, with Nian's mother actively encouraging the match. I finally married her. The moment I lifted her veil, I suddenly understood. It wasn't that I feared this might all be a dream, I only feared that Nian might not be in that dream. Now, everything is as I wished. The end.